Welcome, everyone. What a great and glorious day it is to celebrate the accomplishments of women. I have a few introductory comments I'd like to share with you, and then we'll get started with our content. For those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Dr. Bernice Ledbetter. I serve as Director for the Center for Women in Leadership. I'm also the Dean of Students here at the Graziadio School, and I'm thrilled to be in this space with you today in this moment right now. I want to acknowledge my colleagues, my dear colleagues in our alumni engagement area for the great work that they have done to put this program together. I first want to thank Nicole Logan. She's our Assistant Director of Alumni Programs and Engagement for her leadership in making this event happen. And also Deborah Martin, Assistant Director for Alumni Communications and Marketing, for helping to promote this event. Thank you so much, Nicole and Deborah. Couldn't do it without you. Appreciate your partnership and your collegiality so very much. The Center for Women in Leadership is pleased to serve as the host for this event. And the center launched actually in 2015, which means next year, 2025, is going to be our 10th anniversary. I can hardly believe it. So look forward to some great programming next year. And it's a reminder of why we started this center. It was designed to create opportunities for women and men to reach their highest levels of leadership. And we've been doing that through leadership development programs, mentoring, research, and events like this one. We want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity, the knowledge, and the skills to reach to their highest level of capacity as a leader. A couple of facts as we get started. I wanted to check in and see where are we with advancing women in leadership. So I took a little quick tour through some research and discovered the following. Women and people of color make up almost half of the C-suite leaders in our country, but they're still locked out of some of the top and biggest jobs, according to Fortune. Still, women hold now, for the first time, the highest percentage, which is 10.4% of the Fortune 500 CEO roles. That's 52 women, and an even greater percentage of women serving on board seats for Fortune 500 companies at 30%. That is a huge accomplishment. There's still much more work to be done. And in speaking of more work to be done, there's only 1.6% of the Fortune 500 CEOs who are Black. And so our colleagues of color have a lot of ground to cover to reach higher levels of leadership, and are doing so in many, many ways, some of which are entrepreneurial ventures. In fact, in the entrepreneurial space in 2019, pre-pandemic, 42% of all small businesses in the US were owned and managed by women. According to the World Bank, that's an estimated contribution to our gross domestic product by $3 trillion. And those businesses created 23 million jobs and added to the US economy substantially. Like all small businesses and large businesses too, they were hit hard by the pandemic. And nearly half of the business startups after the pandemic started to subside in 2021 were led by women. So you can see that women will forge ahead and push hard and achieve the highest possible set of goals that they have, no matter what the circumstances are. So with all this great news about women in leadership today, we want to focus on you. We are excited to bring to you some new ideas about not just managing your career, but igniting your career to reach your highest aspirations. So various viewpoints at various points in our career. I don't think it matters if you're just starting out or you've been in the workplace for a long, long time like me. We ask ourselves a set of questions oftentimes, like, how do I move forward? How do I get unstuck? What is it that I really want to do? And how do I move to the next level in my career? Lots of questions like that. And so today we're joined by co-authors of a recently released book titled Near, Now, Near, and Next. And they're going to help us answer these questions and even more. In their book, our keynote speakers, Cynthia and Kimberly, list many of the relatable themes that we ourselves may be experiencing, like a lack of clarity or feeling like we've plateaued in our growth, or maybe even a fear of change, or maybe it's summoning the courage to take our career to the next level, to ignite our intentionality. So we'll hear from also a wonderful, esteemed alumni panel of accomplished professionals who will share with us their insights on career progression strategies. And we hope that you will stay with us to the very end of our time together today, because in our final segment of this program, you'll be able to go into a breakout room with our speakers and with our student colleagues to have a more in-depth and robust discussion and engage in Q&A. So stay with us all to the very end so that you get the most out of the offering today. So we are very delighted to be joined today by leaders of the Graziadio Women's Business Association, a student-led endeavor comprised of women, students, and allies to work together to advance women into higher levels of leadership. And these colleagues will introduce our speakers. So let's jump in. It's my pleasure to begin by introducing one of the co-presidents of the Graziadio Women's Business Association. To get us started, Mary Ann Buckley is a student in our part-time MBA program. She is currently completing a semester exchange. In fact, Mary Ann joins us today from the Netherlands. So over to you, Mary Ann. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ledbetter, and thanks for having GWBA here today. Today we have Dr. Cynthia Bentzen-Mercer with us, and Dr. Cynthia Bentzen-Mercer is the co-author of Now, Near, Next, a practical guide for mid-career women to move from professional serendipity to intentional advancement. And she's co-founder and managing partner of the Zeal of the Heel LLC. Dr. Cynthia is an international speaker delivering compelling content to the CDC, YWCA Metro St. Louis, LEAP HR Healthcare, and the Barrel Institute, to name a few. Her unique approach to maximizing human performance has been featured in Improving HR and Heather McGowan's The Empathy Advantage, on numerous podcasts, including famous interviews with Joe Domino, the digital executive, The Chris Voss Show, and several news outlets, and in the E-Missourian, the Business Journals, the Labor Tribune, St. Louis Public Radio, and Catholic Health Association of the U.S. publications. Combining humor, real-world examples, and actionable takeaways, Dr. Cynthia speaks on intentional career advancement, energizing self-agency, igniting professional intentionality, actualizing potential, unleashing talent, and leading a talent-based organization. Blending her professional and philanthropic passions, Dr. Cynthia lends her time, talent, and treasure to women's organizations that focus on liberating those who are poor, underserved, or marginalized, including Dreams to Reality, YWCA, and Marion Middle School. So thank you so much, Dr. Cynthia, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Awesome. And now I will hand it over to Lizzie to present our next author.
Hi, thank you, Marianne. So I'm gonna present Kimberly Rath. She received her MBA in 2018 as part of the Pepperdine Graziadio President's Key Executive Cohort. She's also the co-author of Now, Near, Next, and the co-founder and managing partner of the Zeal of the Heel. Kimberly is also the chairman and co-founder at Talent Plus, which is an internationally recognized global human resources consulting firm with over 400 clients in over 20 countries, delivering interviews and assessments in more than 20 languages. Talent Plus uses world-class science to help clients grow high-performing and fully engaged culture through talent discovery and development. The ROI of the company showed improved work performance, increased productivity, reduced turnover, and strengthened employee engagement, as well as bottom line results. So welcome, Kimberly. And now I'm gonna pass it back on to you and Cynthia so you guys can talk about the book.
Yeah, thank you. We are so appreciative. Cynthia and I are so appreciative of Dr. Ledbetter and Nicole and Deborah for putting this session together so that we can share our evidence-based research of what we learned about mid-career women. We just appreciate Pepperdine leaning into International Women's History Month and doing this celebration with us. And of course, I'm very fond of Pepperdine because, as you heard, I'm a graduate. And this is all about our journey. And I always had on my bucket list, I wanted my MBA. I didn't go back to school till I was 57. And I realized I wish I would have done that sooner. And that's really about the essence of our book, Cynthia, is about creating more intentionality in our mid-career. So again, appreciate the whole Pepperdine community joining us today and the esteemed panelists as well.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you, Kimberly, for introducing us to this awesome opportunity. And as a California girl by most of my years, I do miss my Southern California friends, and seeing where all of you all are coming from makes me miss that warm weather because I'm in the central Missouri these days. Um, It'd be interesting to know how many of you that have joined us today, and you feel free to put this in the chat, have our parents, either currently parents of kiddos in the house, or maybe you've launched, but you're always a parent, right? Or a pet parent, or perhaps you're taking care of elderly parents. But, do you have some caregiving responsibilities outside the day to day and all that you are otherwise responsible for? As Kimberly and I embarked on this journey, one of the things that we learned straight away is that we are best poised to serve the person we once were. And as we really thought about that, so many people are parents that are showing up in the chat, and aunties, and I'm a grandma, and Kimberly's a grandma, so our care continues. But it reminded me of thinking back to the early part of mid-career. And when we think about mid-career, it's a really long time. It's about from age, say, 25 to 28, all the way to 58 plus and growing. It's 3 decades, and it's the most complicated, complex, busy part of our career journey. And so as I thought about where I was at that phase and that early part of my career journey, I was reminded of a story, and perhaps some of you all can relate to this. I was on a plane. My kids were born in Southern California, and my hometown is Missouri. And we were flying home to visit relatives. And my son, Jacob, was sitting to my left. He's 5 years old at the time. And my daughter, Jordan, was 10 years old at the time. And as we were getting ready to launch, to take off, the flight attendant came on and reminded us to turn off our bells and whistles and store them for safety during takeoff. So I took out my BlackBerry at the time. This has been a few minutes ago, and began to shut it down. And my 5-year-old son looked at me and said, "You have to turn your phone off?" And I said, "Yes, honey, it can interfere with the pilot and this and that." And my daughter turned to me and interrupted and said, "The entire flight?" And I said, "Yes." To which both children at the same time went, "Yes."
Mm.
Yeah, it was just one of those moments of thinking about where my attention and presence had been.
And I can so relate. I started a business 35 years ago, and that was before virtual sessions. And so it was just normal for us to get on airplanes and fly around the globe to do consulting work. And I have over 3 million miles on one airline alone, United, plus with Delta and American, it's probably another million. So I was out of the home a lot. And as I think back on my mid-career, I was always saying, I'll wait and do this when the kids get through elementary school. I'll wait till they're through middle school. I'll wait till they finish high school. And I always put off some of my own development because I was just really investing in them. My daughter at age 10 had to describe me on a panel at the University of Nebraska. And she said, "My mom, in one word, is ongoing," which means I never stopped. I was in constant motion. And at the same time, my kindergartner said to his teacher, "My mom goes to the airport." But during this time at age 37, my dad unexpectedly passed away. And so into a transition of not only having children that I was investing in, but also a mom that was in a grieving process that now moved in with us and I took on a whole different role of being her activity partner and taking her to the doctor and just investing in her. So there's lots of things that happen in mid-career where we're just really pouring into others and maybe not intentionally focused on our own professional development, Cynthia.
Yeah, and even if it's, some people said they're parents. I don't know how you say parents with a PAW, but you get the point. I'm one of those too now. The point is this, we really feel strongly about women investing unapologetically, guilt-free in themselves. And we can find lots of reasons and rationale for why we don't have time for that. And we're going to address that very quickly today. But we just want at this point to say congratulations for taking this hour. Congratulations for taking this time, this 60 minutes to pour into you. And I hope that you will follow Dr. Ledbetter's advice and stay to the very end, because it's time to start intentionally investing and working on your future today.
So true. So Cynthia and I started our journey of writing this book with doing extensive research. We have over 30 interviews, qualitative interviews with women across the entire globe in 4 countries, 5 ethnicities. And as Cynthia said, mid-career is long. It may start about age 28 and go to 58. It's getting a little older. I still think I'm in mid-career at 62, not at my encore career yet. But it's a long time, and we go through a lot of life transitions during that time. We have over 900 years of collective experience in our research, and we also included over 300 women in a survey that brought in a lot of great insights. And we did extensive literature review to begin this journey of bringing evidence-based research to our audiences.
That was really important to us that in addition to the collective 65 years of experience that Kimberly and I had, that this was very much evidence-based, and that we were understanding that this was something that we could get underneath. What is the problem we're trying to solve, and what is the cause, and how do we start to make a difference? And the one thing that was common across these 5 race ethnicities, these various countries, these women of different career stages, all within this long mid-career, within different industries, is that some point along the way, and often multiple times throughout mid-career, myself included, is that they begin to feel restless or stuck or stagnant or frustrated, even that there was just a time where they were unfulfilled in some way. And the best word that we could find that really summed that up is this sense of restlessness. And from our research, we believe that the cause of this restless feeling is largely due to being unactualized, that these women at some point along the way felt that they had more talent to give, more value to add, more gifts to express. It wasn't an indictment of the company that they worked for as much as it was the role that they were in at that point, and was it allowing them enough space, enough bandwidth to really exercise their full potential. And so while we don't deny that there are global and cultural and social norms, and we'll hit on those in just a moment, that certainly can hold women back, women and minorities at large, we also believe that there are some things that we can control. And based on this research, our belief is that intentionality is the one thing that we can really lean into. Because what we found is that women in particular are really conditioned to put your head down, work hard, and good things will happen. Anybody heard that before? Maybe you could add that to the chat if you've heard that before. Put your head down, work hard, good things will happen. You'll get tapped when it's your time. Don't be so restless. Don't be so eager. You'll know. We'll let you know when it's time. And so we often follow that advice. And unfortunately, when we do look up at some point and we're feeling restless and we're feeling stagnant and we're feeling uncomfy, it's because everybody else has moved around us and we're still sitting in that same spot waiting to be tapped. And so we really want to invite you to be far more intentional, because we believe that there's a global impact and there's a personal impact.
Absolutely. And as Dr. Ledbetter's talked about this very clearly, is in the research, is only 10% of the women are in CEO positions in Fortune 500 companies. And women are also doing about 2.6% of the domestic work. So they're working full time during mid career many times, and they're going home and doing 2 times more. So Cynthia talks about is we put our heads down and we just keep working harder. And what we found in our research, and you've also seen this in publications, is that men, and we love men because we need to take a page out of their book. They really get promoted based upon potential and promise. We need to figure out how to put our potential out there like they do for opportunities. And so as we look at this, what does this do compounding to an individual? So if I look at my 401k, when I started working at age 23, and when I did not start with pay equity, but then what happens is then I took some time away to spend some time with my children, and then I went back into the workforce. When I look at my 401k today, it's just not as rich as it could be. And so we've got to change this for women so that there's not this economic loss, as well as it minimizes growth when we have in our mid-career. And it also increases some stress or burnout because a lot of times we just take on more volume, as we're saying, versus value. And it gets to a point sometimes for burnout as well, Cynthia.
Absolutely. What we are really attempting to do is create a movement. We've written the book and we'll talk more about that, but it's really for us about intentionality and start intentionally working on your future today. And what we mean by that is don't take your eyes off your day job and what's really important in your current role, but it's what's that next? What is your next? And you start now working towards your near to reach your next, whether it's a certification, an advanced degree, a new skill, volunteering on a board, etc. Figuring out what is your next and putting that into the universe today.
And what we
So
know about
please.
technology is it has the shelf life of about 18 months. And so things are changing very quickly. And that's why we need to be very intentional about the things we need to learn because platforms are changing so much. We get a new iPhone every year or every 2 years. And we have to continue to increase our skills and our capabilities so we're ready for that potential next opportunity. Or maybe a volunteer opportunity comes up on a board and we've worked on learning how to use an Excel spreadsheet better, and just thought it would be something we should have in our toolbox. It's all those things that can help us be ready and prepared when an opportunity does come to us.
Absolutely, 100%. So we can only touch on in the 4 minutes we have left, we can only touch on a couple of things. But we want to introduce you to the concepts of the book. So in the first section, which is all about energizing self-agency, this is about taking charge, creating boundaries, and making space and time to invest in yourself. Because the first thing we heard from women is, I don't have time. The second then is we talk about proclaiming your purpose, being really clear on your foundation, and then revealing your zeal. What is it that it's your special qualities and talents? And we're going to touch a little bit on that. What we won't have the opportunity to get into today is our second section, which is all about what Kimberly was just really elaborating upon, which is really being clear on how do you build support? How do you put your aspirations into the universe? And how are you clear on what should your next be? Because we often hear women say, I love what you're saying, but I don't even know where to start. And so section 2 really helps with that. And then the last section is about how do you actualize that beautiful, big, full potential around radiating confidence, taking some mitigated risks. And then chapter 9 is if you've done everything 1 through 8 perfectly, good for you. It's a lot of work, but life is messy. And so we talk about how do you bounce back when life throws you a curveball.
And so you can go on our website and begin the journey today by taking a mid-career audit. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes to do, and it'll give you a score about where I am in my mid-career. And you can also download the Now Near Next blueprint, which will help you to begin to chart where am I now? What am I presently doing? And what do I want to focus on in the near? And possibly think about what are my aspirations for my next?
So we're going to give you just 2 really quick tips that you can explore much more deeply as you dig in. We're going to talk about time and we're going to talk about talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know from UNNC that we make about 30,000 decisions a day. In fact, we make about 200 decisions on food. And we all do that with our coffee. Like, how many, things are we going to put in a coffee every morning? But we don't put the same intentionality around, what do I need to learn to help me advance in my career? Possibly, what do I need? What mentors do I need? Who do I need to be meeting up with, or networks I need to be exploring? And so we really need to intentionally think about, how do I use my time? And then how do I understand my potential so that I can build a platform where it's the best expression of who I am?
So Kimberly talked about this notion of volume value. And so within our work, we have a framework that looks at and helps women to think more about, how do you discern what do you take on and what do you let go of? And think about it this way. You're really thinking about a 4-quadrant model that is, what internal intrinsic value does this thing bring to me? How does it forward my growth, my journey, my joy? And what is the external value I perceive? It's important to the school. It's important to my kids. It's important to my parents. It's important to my community. And as you come to those crossroads, pouring into just the things with time that hit both of those markers, but being willing to say no, thank you, when it doesn't meet either of those markers, and being able also to use resources or to delegate or to perhaps suggest others. Sometimes it's a monetary resource. I chose not to volunteer in my son's school after the first time, and it was not my gift when he was in first grade. And so I was rather to write a $15 check toward pencils. So you can explore more about how you really dive into this framework of, what do you take on and what do you let go of, so that you can make time, Kimberly, to invest in yourself.
Right. And really express that potential. And what we have a dream for all of you is that you will find a role that you can really grow, and work with a leader that will invest in you, and a team that's really fun to work with. And so that your potential is like wearing a good pair of shoes. You tap dance to work every day. It just feels good. You get a lot of intrinsic satisfaction out of the work that you get to do and enjoy.
So, real quick story, just to think about alignment. My daughter Jordan, when she was about 8 years old, was sitting in the back seat, and she expressed to me that she knew what she wanted to be when she grew up. And I said, "Great, what is it?" And she said, "I want to be one of those people that everybody tells their problems to." I said, "Oh, great, like a therapist. That's awesome. That's a great profession." I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, at school on the playground, everybody comes to me and tells me their problems." And I'm like, "Okay." And she says, "And I know exactly what to tell them to do." I said, "Okay, babe. Well, you might want to know that as a therapist or psychiatrist, et cetera, you really have to do a lot of deep listening, asking questions and being more of a listener than a teller." There was a long, pregnant pause from the back seat, to which then Jordan said, "Well, what's a job where I get to do all the talking?" So the point of the story is, as we're thinking about careers and we're thinking about the next, make sure that it's something that aligns with your talent, not just chasing the title, the money, the thing that you perceive to be this amazing thing. But do you really understand? Is it part of what you spontaneously do naturally? You perform with excellence, you're consistent in your performance, and it feels good. And it feels good.
Yeah, so we want to help you identify things that you're really good at and enjoy, and you'll never work a day in your life. And that's what our whole focus is figuring out time to invest in yourself and understand your potential. Also, if you want to go online, you can go take the QR code and purchase the book and start your journey today. Not only can you download the blueprint online free, but get the book and start doing the work. And it starts intentionally working on it today.
Yeah, you can, if on Amazon, it's $28, obviously free shipping. If you get it on our website, which is on the right, we've got it discounted for Pepperdine University, PU-24. You can put that in the discount code, and you're going to get it for $25. And we're also going to add about $478 worth of free bonuses. So you can start intentionally working today and learn a lot more about the stuff that we are racing through this morning or this afternoon.
Hey,
Looping
so what
back.
is Jordan's story? And then let's
Yes.
explore
So
the
looping
benefits.
looping back to Jordan as we close this out and move to our amazing panel. So a few years later, Jordan was about 12 at the time, and all of you California folks can appreciate this. She got the bug for acting and singing. And so she found the place where she could do all the talking, and she was performing. She booked a commercial. She was really finding her stride in musical theater. She came to me about 12 years old and she says, "Mommy, I figured out my plan B. If this whole like superstar Broadway actress singer doesn't work out, I've got a plan B." And of course, I'm thinking as a professional woman, thank goodness. I said, "Great. What is it?" And she said, "A female stand-up comedian." I don't know about y'all, but I laughed, not my best mommy moment. And I said, "Jordan, really? That's your plan B? If this really hard job doesn't work out, not a lot of people make it, your backup plan is a more obscure job, a stand-up comedian?" To which she said, mic drop moment without hesitation, "Mom, I have no small dreams."
And we have no small dreams for all of you. So if you can't fly, then run. And if you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you need to keep moving forward in your now, your near, and your
And you're
next.
next.
Yes.
We're going to turn it back to the Nicole and the Pepperdine team to take us into our wonderful panel discussion.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Kimberly and Cynthia. That was amazing. I think we all need to write it down. I have no small dreams, and own that. Let Jordan be our teacher. I love it. I love it. Can we get you? You said that we could go to your website and download a couple of things.
Yes, I'll put that
is
in the chat right now.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. I didn't quite catch that, and I bet I'm not the only one. So thank you so much. That was so rich, and I feel like we're just enjoying cheesecake. It's so rich and so helpful. And thank you. You work well together, and that's also a delight to be in your presence and experience that. So thank you so much. Now I'm delighted to hand it over to Courtney Fulton. She's going to introduce one of our panelists. Courtney is a student in our part-time MBA, and she serves as the treasurer for the Graziadio Women's Business Association. So Courtney, over to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Ledbetter. I will be introducing alumna Dr. Anna Brandt, who received her doctoral degree in business administration in 2021. Her research, Understanding the New Wealthy, Ideologies, Consumption Patterns, and Organizational Strategies for a New Generation of High Net Worth Individuals, focuses on ideological consumption of UHNWI, consumer culture theories, relationship marketing, and resource-based organizational strategies. Anna currently serves as the Vice President of Customer Experience and Loyalty at Wynn Las Vegas and Encore, and an adjunct professor for the Graziadio Business School. She is an executive board member for the Fast Company, and she regularly shares her unconventional yet thoughtful ideas in the Harvard Business Review, Forbes, and the peer-reviewed Cornell Hospitality Quarterly, and at speaking engagements for institutions such as Cornell University, Harvard University, Wharton School of Business, Sciences Po, École Littéraire de Lausanne, and the Malcolm Baldrige Awards. Anna also serves on the advisory board of the legendary British brand Turnbull & Asser, and has advised executives in private aviation, luxury goods, and membership clubs. Anna's past work experience includes overseeing guest experiences for Dorchester Collection's group of 9 luxury hotels, and she's held various positions within the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company and the Walt Disney World. And I will pass it on to our VP of Male Allies, Miles, to introduce our next panelist.
Thank you so much, Courtney. I have the honor and privilege to introduce alumnus Dr. Keith Dorsey, who received his MBA in 2013 as part of Pepperdine Graziadio's Presidents and Key Executives Cohort 130. Keith currently serves as the managing partner and U.S. practice leader for CEO and board services at Boyden. Dr. Keith Dorsey is a researcher, author, advisor, and active board member focused on issues of diversity, governance, and strategic growth for private and public corporate boards. His recent research examined the pathways Black women executives took to secure corporate board seats, yielding powerful insights about the barriers and facilitators unique to diverse candidates seeking these positions. Keith has over 25 years of sales leadership experience in the human capital management industry, such as at Alight Solutions, formerly Aon Hewitt and Hewitt Associates, a $2.3 billion leading provider of human capital solutions, where he served as the executive vice president of global head of sales, responsible for the overall sales growth strategy and execution. Keith is a National Association of Corporate Directors certified director. He serves as a board member at the Vimley Benefit Solutions, Pepperdine Graziadio's Business School, the City of La Quinta's Financial Advisory Commission, and the Pacific Crest Trail Association. Keith is also a member of the Executive Leadership Council and a graduate of Santa Clara's University Black Corporate Board Readiness Program. Former board member, Orion Talent, a recruitment process outsourcing and talent acquisition firm. And now I get to pass it off to Penelope.
Thank you, Miles. It is my pleasure to introduce alumna Grace Kangdani. Grace is the Senior Vice President in Transformative Technology Group for Bank of America, and she is also a recent member to the board of Graziadio's Center for Women in Leadership. Thank you, Grace, for joining us today. We're so excited to learn from your experiences. And next, we will have GWBA's co-president Leslie introducing our next panelist.
Hi, everyone. Apologies about the background. I'm having some technical issues, but I get the pleasure of introducing alumna Amy Tower. So she received her MBA in 2018 at Pepperdine's Graziadio President Key Executives, cohort 139. Amy is the Chief Executive Officer at the Healthcare Foundation for Ventura City. Amy is a tri-sector competent senior executive and board director with exceptional skills in innovation, strategic management, organizational transformation, and successful corporation creation. She co-founded Healthcare Foundation for Ventura County, which leverages public and private investments for a $1 billion investment, Ventura County Healthcare Agency, and especially its safety net hospital system. With more than 2 decades of experience, Amy created diversified fundraising programs that have brought more than $10 million in revenue for this new venture, sorry. She has formed and cultivated a culture of philanthropy with over 10,000 county employees and over 8,000 county retirees. As part of the hospital and healthcare agency leadership team, Amy works collaboratively toward the global strategic goals of the Ventura County Healthcare Agency. Thank you, Amy, for being here with us today. I'm going to pass it back over to Cynthia and Kimberly.
Yes, it's so great to have this esteemed panelist. And so our first question is, and this is going to go to Amy and Keith, and we're going to start with Amy, and so you can kind of collaborate on this. So many women are so busy living in the moment, trying to navigate through the week, that they can't even imagine making time to consider the future. And I'm sure a lot of people thought about this on the call, like, I don't have 2 hours to invest in myself today. How am I going to do this? Why do both of you feel it's so important to identify your next career milestone now and start developing towards it? So Amy, you want to start? And then Keith, I want you to jump in.
Oh, we're good. We're the dynamic duo, Keith.
I thought so.
I would say that, we have to remember, we must remember that our careers are a journey. It's not a destination. We get to show up every single day joyfully and in each and every role that we have, no matter what it is. I mean, my career path has been long and winding through several different industries, unlike Dr. Ledbetter, who has graciously given us of her talents at Pepperdine for many, many years. So no matter if you're going the 2 different routes, it really doesn't matter. The thing is showing up joyfully and making sure that as you go through the day, you're really paying attention to what resonates with you. What are the things that resonate with you and that you hold on to? Just like Jordan, Cynthia's daughter, she knew from a very young age. So there's lots of different pivots that you can make throughout the journey and making sure that, you're showing up and you're looking and you're figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and you're at the culture that you want to belong to is the culture that you should be every day. So when you're walking in those heels, those beautiful heels that you have, but they hurt, you need to make sure that you're thinking, this is almost right, but not quite right, and thinking about those things. So I would say that every day it is that intentional part of showing up. What do you think, Keith?
I think the word of today is really going to be intentional.
Mhm.
It takes intentionality to be able to do all of this. And sometimes we want to serendipitously go through our journey, and that may not be the best way. It takes intentionality of it and identifying the next role, and then reverse engineering the things that you need to do to actually accomplish that next role. And I love the book and how you outline various steps to actually get there, but it takes the reflection to figure out what makes you tick, what brings you joy, and unwind those things and then intentionally go after that next role. And so, like I said, at least my comments are always going to revolve around that intentionality today. And I'll give you many more examples on how to be intentional in pursuing that your next.
I love that. And I love the fact that as you were reflecting on that, about intentionality, it's in all things, right? And the reverse engineering is so important because we often say if you look at the book on a very surface level, the topics themselves, you could say, well, gosh, this seems like fairly simple. Like, yeah, of course, show up, speak up, right? Everybody gets that. But when you sit down and start to do the work and start to journal about your purpose, about your natural talents, about what you're specifically going to do to be intentional, that's a whole other investment of time and energy. And I think that that's where the fruit really comes from, that labor. Then the next question is going to go to Grace. And, one of the things that we learned about Grace in her introduction is that you have been with your organization, Bank of America, for a long time. I want to say you've been there 22 years. Is that accurate?
That's
Yeah.
accurate. Yeah, that was
Yes.
the college job I thought I'd quit, but I have
Right.
3 degrees later and I'm still here.
So what I think is so important about that, because Kimberly and I are asked to come into a lot of companies and talk to their employee resource groups or their leadership teams, et cetera. And sometimes the CEOs will get a little nervous because they'll say, you're not going to come in here and tell everybody that they need to find a new job, right? Like their next needs to be go get a promotion and the grass is greener. And we're like, no, there's lots of ways you can be intentional, to use Keith's words and our words, and stay right where you are and continue to flourish. So what advice do you have? How have you had such success for 22 years and 10 jobs, I think you said, in 22 years? How can people thrive and find their next within the organizations that they're at if it's a great alignment to their purpose?
Sure. I think I'm probably the oddity or a unicorn in that sense, staying with the same organization for so many years. To carry on this shoes analogy, like we've all had those shoes or clothing item that you've had for a long, long time. You resold it, you replaced the heel, you got it dry clean, like you kept doing it because you loved it and it works out, right? But you could wear it to work, you could wear it to travel, you could wear it to parties. I liken it into that respect. When you find a culture that works for you, you have a supportive network that works for you. And most importantly, I'm continuing to having fun and interested in what I'm doing. Hence the 10 jobs. I'm learning something new all the time. Why leave? Because the benefit that I've gained staying with the same organization are a couple of folds. One is I'm continuing to grow. I become really good at my job beyond just my job. I get to know the organization. I get to know the culture. I get to know to navigate things differently from somebody who just comes in and have to learn this massive matrix organization.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is I get to have corporate network internally. I have people in different divisions. I've been in 4 different divisions throughout my career here in 10 jobs, as I mentioned. There are people who are amplifying me, supporting me, mentoring me in different ways so that I could continue to grow without leaving the enterprise. And I think the last part is find what resonates with you. Amy had said that earlier, like, find what's your passion. You mentioned that also in the book. I get to advance causes that I care about. For example, causes involving women, causes involving the API community, mentoring. All of these things are additional expansion of my role. It's not my primary job. Because I've been with the organization for so long, I learned what resonates with them, represents it outside, and it also satisfies what I need. So I think if you find that right pair of shoes or your leather jacket, keep it, resole it, keep wearing it, and it pays for dividends. So
Or
I've
that
been
little black dress, right? I
all
can
the
totally,
black dress.
this
Yes,
is
or
all, I love this new metaphor. We're totally stealing your metaphor, just FYI. That is so, so good. I know, Kimberly, you have a question for Anna coming up. But I just have a quick follow-up because I think that there's another thing that's important, Grace. Did you put out into the universe or to your aspirations that you had interest in other things and a willingness to grow and switch departments, et cetera? Because I think sometimes if we kind of keep it to ourselves and then we're not tapped. So I'm curious, did you have a lot of really good mind readers, or did you make it known that you were open to diversifying your career and ready for new things?
yes. Earlier in my career, I've had the good fortune of having people who look out for me. I'd say that I have really good mentors, people who told me in my undergrad, why don't you apply for an internship? What's an internship? I have no idea. I was an undergrad. And then later on, I've had people who said, you had a degree in finance, getting your MBA. Why are you doing that job? You should do this job and go explore that role. So I did that. In navigating and making networks all across the enterprise, and later on, they amplified, my, and when people can say like, oh, I have that role, or you're thinking about that, you should talk about Grace. She should be one of the people that you should consider, at least talk to her. That was been very helpful. But yes, you have to be intentional. You have to know it, especially as I progress throughout my career, because sometimes people still remembered me as the MBA associate or the graduate student from back in the day. So I have to sometimes remind them as I go along that, hey, I've grown up in the last 5 years. I've worked on these things. And they are happily endorsing me or building me along because they've known my journey throughout. So being with the same organization doesn't mean that staying stagnant. I think you could use that as your superpower and build it up.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful illustration, Grace. And it also says that you had people underneath you that you were developing that could take your role so that you could get tapped for the next, and that you were able to move forward. Anna, you've done an amazing job with your career in terms of intentionality and adding skills and experiences, that really tapped into your natural gifts and talents, and even created your own job description, I think, at the Win, if I'm not mistaken. And so I'd like you to talk a little bit about, how important is understanding your natural gifts and seeking career opportunities that really fit rather than just chasing something that's maybe, a society expectation of you or what somebody else thinks you should do.
Well, thank you for this profound question. I see this under umbrella unapologetically invest in yourself, which many times it's very difficult because you can invest your time and your resources in others. Especially I saw on the chat how many caregivers are here, parents, pet parents. You can always choose to invest in somebody else, but society sometimes investment in yourself looks at egoistic, selfish, self-centered. Well, I think you just have to say that's untrue, and investing myself makes me happy. So it starts, first of all, by understanding who you are and using different tools like your tool, Talent Plus, which is incredible. It tells you who you are as a leader, what you're great at, what you're not so great at, and then you start from there. I overly invested in my education, probably to cover for some part of self-confidence that I was missing. So continuously pursuing mastery in different subjects, being constantly curious, and not being afraid to pay for the tuition or take that money instead of buying a handbag or something for somebody else, take that money and put it in school and tuition and education. And education really helped me to then, purposely reinvent myself at the time I needed to reinvent myself. Being with the same company for many years, I was there, and then taking that risk, which I think women are less likely to take risks of reinvention. I kind of see every decade of my career, I need to kind of click and reinvest. And if my 20s and my 30s and my 40s, my life was very different and I had different satisfactions. But, going back to your original question is, do not be afraid to invest in yourself, resources, time, money, to know yourself, surround yourself with people that are better than you, that cover for your weakness and complement your strengths.
You've done such a good job with that, and I've just always admired the way that you've really leaned into your development, because so many of the rest of us have been very, if it kind of haphazardly, it's kind of serendipity, did it just happen that we got tapped? But you really have created really nice intentionality around things that you wanted to learn, and it taps, of course, into your natural learning aptitude, which you're an incredible curious learner. And Anna said something about, we have a talent spotlight in the book. So if you want to go on our website as well, you can do the talent spotlight. It's for an additional little purchase, but it helps you understand where your natural talents lie. And then you can add that into your blueprint so that you are creating intentionality around things that you have strengths in and that you have aspirations for.
Yeah. And I think too, once you really understand that, and we would love to bring all the panelists at the same time, if that would be okay, because we want to just kind of have a little bit of a organic conversation. And we do have one question in the chat. Let me throw this one out, and then I'll scan the chat really quickly. How have sponsors shown up in your career journeys? And we talked about people aren't good guessers. They're generally not mind readers. So sponsors sort of have to know what you aspire to be. Once you really understand your gifts and talents and you have a clarity around your next, talk about how you have engaged sponsors and the importance of sponsors in your journey. Maybe we'll start with Keith.
Yeah. Happy to chime in. Thank you, Cynthia. As far as sponsors, initially I had to understand the difference between that mentor and the actual sponsor. And I've had, fortunately, throughout my 30-year corporate career, I've had both. And when it came to sponsors, they, after mentors taught me how to identify my next, sponsors gave me some of the directions as to how to go after my next. And in doing so, I've had good sponsors and I've had not so good sponsors. An example of a good sponsor really helped me outline a plan to get to my next, and then made certain that they positioned me once I did the hard work to actually get there. And another not so good situation, I had a sponsor at my Fortune 500 company recommend me for a COO job for the Fortune 500 company. And well, she suggested that I went after the role and she would make certain that it happened. I was the executive vice president and global head of sales at the time, and I knew we had a few M&A activity things going on. And I put on my global hat and my responsibility hat and said, no, I really need to stay where I am today as the global head of sales because of all these things that are coming up. And I think that would be the best use of my capital for the company. What she didn't do when she sponsored me for that COO role, she said, Keith, I really want you to go for it. I said, give me 2 weeks. And I came back and I said, no. What she didn't do was connect the dots for me. And sometimes when you believe in the person you're sponsoring so much that you believe they understand all those dots and why they're recommending you for a role, I didn't completely understand it all. And now in this chapter where I sit on corporate boards, it would have been so much easier for me to get on corporate boards because I was in that vertical of executive sales that whole time. I didn't have the P&L experience that the COO role would have given me. And she would have helped me, and she knew, because I was already sitting on Graziadio's board, she knew I wanted that in my next chapter. She just didn't connect the dots for me and assumed that I realized. And so sponsors have a role of not only recommending you, but to also help connect the dots for you, because that it may not be as obvious for the mentee, or in this case, the person being sponsored.
I think that's really important. And I want to add something that may be useful as well, is that because I feel like I've been a sponsor that's done that to somebody else before, where I thought I was doing something that made sense, and they were like, yeah, that feels like volume, not value, right? Turning that around from a self-agency perspective. What I would also offer is, as women in particular, and people in general, is if that opportunity is coming and it doesn't make sense to you, is ask the question. Help me understand how you see that being a benefit to my growth in my future, because I know you have my back. I know I'm grateful that you're thinking of me. I'm not connecting the dots about how this will shape out. Because I can say sometimes having that question asked of me when I'm in the sponsor role would be like, okay, I haven't done that, but that's one way, again, to how do we take on the intentionality of our own self-agency if something isn't making sense? So just two sides of that I think are really important. Are
Well,
there other? Yeah.
another idea about that is, if you do say, no, as Keith, you said, I had so much more work to do on this journey, is that we don't put people then on a list that they said no. And that's where we all have to be in rooms where we still nominate people, because it was just no at that moment. It wasn't no forever. And so we have to be advocates and allies for everybody to say, I think this person's ready now.
Yeah.
And keep them on that list and keep them visible, and somebody that we really need to get to know and pay attention to in companies.
There's a kind of a related question. I just want to get to this because I think our panelists are going to have a lot to say about this, and we hear this from time to time. So Teresa's asking, what advice do you have for someone who stayed in a role in a department too long, their words, too long, and they're now considered an expert in that area, but a risk to transition into a different department or role? And I see Grace giggling. Obviously, this resonates in some way. So why don't we start with you? But I think this is such an important one, right? And Kimberly, maybe we follow Grace with how we over-index on performance, because I think, we kind of put ourselves there sometimes. Grace, what are your thoughts about that? And
the manager's dilemma, right? You want to keep your best talent in place because they're so good at what they do. They can mentor and they could make your life so much easier. They free up their time. However, if you don't get promoted or you don't advance them, challenge them, they're going to leave anyway. So either you help them leave and be their sponsor, or you keep them there, they're going to leave anyway. So from my experience is, raise your hand, ask for the additional assignment, the additional stretch. You could say like, hey, I've been here for X number of years. I've done this, I've done that, and articulate the accomplishments, the contribution. What I'm really interested in learning is this. What would it take to take me there? Or even if you are so bold to say like, in the next 5 years, I would really see myself doing X, not a job title, but doing the description. Because in many companies, growing companies, or one that's emerging, they create roles and job functions all the time. So if we box in ourselves to a specific role, sometimes they only think of you with that role. But if you say like, these are the things I'm really good at, like what Keith was saying, I do global operations and sales, and I'm really good at that. In case the company all of a sudden divert and have global operations sales, Keith would be the first one on top of mind, but you have to make it known. And I think that's the theme that we've been saying here, intentionality and saying it out loud. From a manager's seat, I know the dilemma of keeping your best talent in the same place. They're going to leave anyway. So a good manager would rather promote you and keep you in the organization I'm a testament to that, having good leaders and sponsors that brought me along.
Absolutely. And, you think about the shoe analogy is if we don't get an opportunity to use our potential, those shoes get really kind of tight, right? And then they feel our feet are swollen because our potential's not being expressed. And we can't wait to take the shoes off to just kind of unleash that potentiality. But it's also, we need to help people graduate from jobs. They've done such an exceptional job here. What's their next opportunity inside our company or in a different division or practice inside the company? And rather than thinking about losing them, is we're graduating them, and we're exporting talent, I believe somebody said. And so how do we do that? How do we, just get so excited about people's capabilities that we don't want to hold on to them, but we want to actually build platforms for their growth?
I would say too that one of the things is that we need to make sure that as we show up joyfully in our job and skillfully in our role, we also attract so that other people can come because they may be looking at your job. They may be looking at your role and they may want your opportunity. And so for us to create that space for them to say, you know what, you should move into my role because I'm looking at this role over here. And you can help your leadership do that transition plan. That's what I do with my colleagues that work with me. I'm always assessing to see, how is this role resonating with you? What are the things that you're aspiring for that you want to learn? And these are the important things. We always say, do unto others the way you want others to do unto you, or do unto others, to do unto you. And so we live by that golden rule.
And I think I could talk about this from two roles, one as the employee that's progressing up the ladder and one as the leader. As the employee, I believed in identifying your near in this case, and by identifying that near, you can then begin to look at people who are in those roles and both internally and externally. When you're talking with someone internally regarding that, you then can actually have conversations with them about what their role, the tasks that they actually do, and you can actually get them to delegate some of those tasks to you. And so whenever I was going after my near, I started doing that job way before I got promoted into that job. And so I worked for two companies in corporate America, one from 1990 to 2007, the other from 2007 to 2019. And I only interviewed twice in those 29 years, once in 1990 and had 10 positions, and then once in 2007 and had another 7 positions because I was doing the job before I actually was offered the job and I didn't have to interview. As a leader, I believe in promoting people that are often overqualified for the role. And I believe in letting go. If you love them, you'll let them go. And I will let A players move on to their next role. And because I had a reputation within the company of letting A players move on, either within the company or outside of the company, I was able to recruit A players that were ready for it. So 2 different examples.
Those are great examples. I actually had somebody that worked for me, Scott Zeal, and he was the best exporter of talent I've ever met in my life. Like so many people throughout the organization at one point worked in his department and had gone on to and still are with that organization. Anna, it makes me think of something though, because you've held a lot of unique and different positions. Maybe a third dimension of what Keith just added is, how are you building up your successor, right? I had a leader say to me one time, you're not ready for the next role until you have somebody who's ready to step into yours. Like I can't move you out of that job until you have somebody to replace you. Now, I'm not suggesting that hard and fast approach always makes the most sense, but I'll tell you, it really made me think about, how am I growing the people around me so that they have a place to move and I can move? How did that show up in your career journey so that you had the opportunity to continue to excel?
Well, for me, again, it goes back to my natural talents, complete curiosity, and I love to transform things. And once they are once they go from 3 to 10, I'm bored and I'm already looking for something else, which then pushes me to find somebody who's going to do what I thought was exciting a year ago, to get into that level and, bring somebody along the journey to take into my shoes. Actually, I'm going through this right now, a year and a half. I'm kind of at the stage that what's next? Where are we going? Is the company going to go forward with something? I'm getting bored. I'm getting antsy. So I think it comes back to your natural talent, is how you grow things and what motivates you to open that position for somebody else. If you're person maybe with different circumstances and requires to be at a certain position because it gives you stability, it gives you what you need, it might be much more harder for you to train somebody to take your role because you don't want to walk yourself out. Yeah, so I think life circumstances matter, your natural talents matter a lot, and what really is your vision and where do you want to go? So that's kind of how I was always brought up my successor. I just got bored and I needed a new challenge.
Can relate.
Yeah, this is such an amazing panel, and just want to encourage you all to go on, get the book, and start today. As Keith said, it is a journey and there's a lot of work to do. And all of you have done that by intentionally investing in yourselves in education as being lifelong learners. And we have a guide for that and a companion booklet as well that can really help you think about, what is in the near and what is in the next for me. And it's transitions. You probably need to do this every couple years. It's not like it's a linear track. It's a circle. You just keep going and you achieve something. And then you say, okay, what do I need in my near and my next? And so we encourage all of you to take a hold of that discount code and get your book and start today, not tomorrow, but today.